The shocking truth about surrendering, biblical revelations that haunt today at 3 a.m. Darkness fell like an old blanket, smothering the small town of Grovesville. The clock struck 3. And with it came the whispers. People said the echoes of those who had surrendered long ago could be heard on this haunting hour, their voices woven into the night like fragile spider silk. Shadows crept through the empty streets, brushing past homes that seemed to hold their breath, each window a lifeless eye watching, waiting. Mysterious flickers of light danced in abandoned houses, ghostly phantoms enacting a timeless play, while the wind howled secrets of the unspoken. At the center of it all stood the old church, its weathered steeple rising defiantly into the night sky. Decades of neglect hung heavy in the air as the townsfolk spoke of the place. It was said that inside, generations had prayed for deliverance, only to find their prayers answered in twisted forms, manifesting as inexplicable events: the ground shaking, the air bowled with an electric charge. The creaks and groans echoed terrifyingly, as if the very walls were sighing under the weight of their sins, but tonight was different. As the townspeople buried their fears in sleep, a soft glow emanated from the church's cracked stained glass window. What was once the fleeting hope of rekindled faith had turned into something chilling, something sinister. A flicker of movement in the dark. Moments stretched thin, holding breath, as figures slipped in and out of sight. Rumors swirled like leaves in a storm, tales of a truth long buried that demanded to be unearthed. What awaited inside? Was it salvation or damnation? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash the like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the last syllable of the clock faded, a low whisper surged forth, intertwining the air with dread and temptation. Could it be a call of the congregation long gone? A sound that begged to surrender to the secrets held captive? The wind howled louder, pulling at the worn boards of the church, while outside, curious eyes glued to the flickering light began to swell with both fear and intrigue. They edged closer, their hearts pounding in sync with the anxious flutter of anticipation. But were they ready for what awaited? Would they dare step one foot into the depths of their past, or would the echo of that surrender haunt them forever? The glow from the church pulsed, shadows twisting like restless spirits just beyond the threshold. People gathered, unease rippling through them like a live wire. Barely above a whisper, they shared anxious murmurs. "Did you hear that?" one asked, eyes darting towards the door as if it might spring open at any moment. "Maybe we should just leave," another's voice trembled. But curiosity had usurped common sense, and no one moved to retreat. They were bound by an invisible thread, pulled closer to the heart of the mystery. The door swung open slowly, creaking like a ghostly moan. A figure emerged, silhouetted against the eerie brilliance within. It was Father Thompson, his face pale and drawn, eyes wide with unspoken terror. He beckoned them with a shaky hand, urgency palpable in the air. "You have to come inside," he urged, voice low and strained. "You won't believe what's happening." A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Driven by fear and intrigue, they stepped forward. As they crossed the threshold, the atmosphere shifted. Inside the church, the air was thick, charged with a strange energy that prickled on their skin. Whispered voices wafted around them like secrets swirling in the dark. The flickering lights danced in a frenetic waltz as Father Thompson led them deeper into the nave. "I was praying," he stammered, "and something answered. I didn't know it would go this far." His voice broke as he paused, glancing at the rows of pews that stood like sentinels around them. "Father, what do you mean?" one brave soul asked, stepping closer, eyes wide with a mix of fear and hope. His breath hitched. "It's the souls, those who surrendered long ago. They're restless, and they want the truth to be known. Their pain, it echoes through time. We've buried it, but tonight, it's rising." A chill wound through the group. The air grew heavier, suffocating as the once quiet whispers transformed into anguished wails. Each note held centuries of regret, anger, and lost hope. Knees went weak, a few staggered back, gripping pews for support. Suddenly, the lights blinked wildly, casting long shadows that distorted the room into a nightmarish landscape. "We have to listen," Father Thompson shouted over the cacophony. "They need to be freed." In that moment, a figure rose from the shadowed corner of the church. It was a woman, her face shrouded in darkness, but her eyes glowed with an otherworldly light. "You seek answers, don't you?" Her voice slid through the air, smooth yet laced with danger. "But what if the truth is too heavy to bear?" Gasps erupted as fear tangled with intrigue. The townsfolk stood frozen, caught between the enigma of the figure and the cries of souls desperate for liberation. "Are you willing to pay the price?" she continued, stepping closer. "To confront the sins of the past? To surrender your own truth?" A tense silence fell. Hearts raced, sweat broke out. They could feel the weight of a decision looming, a crossroads where ignorance and revelation met. Just then, the church trembled, and the ground beneath them quaked. Fear engulfed them as they sensed that whatever choice they made, the consequences would grip them like a vice. With desperation burning inside, they looked to one another, uncertain of what lay ahead, and just like that, the figure vanished. The light stabilized, leaving them in suffocating darkness. "Do we dare?" someone whispered. Next came a shattering realization, echoed by trembling voices. They hadn't just come to seek answers. They had come to confront their own demons, lurking in the shadows of their hearts. Would they seize the moment, face the reckoning? Or would they turn away, allowing the darkness to swallow them whole? As the clock chimed again, the night held its breath, waiting. A heartbeat echoed in the stillness, punctuating the heavy silence. Time stretched, and the weight of choice hung thick in the air. Father Thompson's eyes searched each face, looking for strength or perhaps courage that had long since fled. What do we do now?" A woman near the back whimpered, her voice trembling as she clutched her companion's arm. "This is bigger than us," he said, his voice steadying. "We can't turn our backs now. The souls need us to find out what is binding them." The atmosphere crackled again, and a whisper of wind danced amongst them, leaving chills in its wake. As if in response, a flicker of light illuminated the altar, casting an eerie glow across the woman's hauntingly vacant spot from just moments before. It felt like a lure, drawing them closer despite the tremors of dread coursing through their bodies. "Father, what does it mean to confront our demons?" A man stepped forward, his bravado thin like a strip of paper. "It means," his breath faltered again, "it means grappling with your past raw and unfiltered. The darkness that you've buried in your heart. The anger, the regret. Not just about the event that drew us here, but everything you've tried to forget." A ripple of uncertainty passed through the crowd. Memories floated to the surface, whispers of betrayal, childhood trauma, secrets that clawed at them from the shadows. Suddenly, shrieks echoed from the back of the church. Someone had stumbled against a pew, and the cascade of startled voices sent another jolt through the crowd. "It's here! It's coming!" The church quaked once more, shaking the very foundations of faith. Flickering bulbs overhead popped, sending sparks raining down around them. Fear surged and swept each person into a swell of confusion. "Stay together," Father Thompson commanded. "We can't let fear tear us apart. If we separate, there is no telling what will happen." In that moment, he turned back towards the altar where flashes of light danced like fireflies beneath the shadows. "If we stand united, we can face whatever comes." His voice rang through the chaos, a lifeline in turbulent waters. But something shifted. The swirling energy thickened, surging and pulling as if the ground wanted to swallow them whole. Each person felt an unseen hand tightening around their throat, the air turning sharp and stale. "Get to the altar!" The shout cut through the noise, and as they moved, the shadows coalesced, forming shapes that twisted and writhed. Faces formed in the dim light, grotesque and sorrowful. They were generations of pain given substance, each one silently screaming for release, and then, from that gathering storm, the woman appeared again. Her gaze bore into each soul, dark yet shimmering, like a star in a moonless sky. "You think you are here to help them, but you have your own truths to face." Shivers coursed down their spines as blinding light encircled the altar, swallowing the dark around it. The oppressive dread mixed with an intense yearning for freedom that could only be attained through confrontation. "Will you stand, or will you flee?" she asked, her voice a haunting reminder of their gilded past. As the clock struck midnight, they froze like marionettes in a moment of tension, knowing they were on the threshold of revelation. Fate hung between them like a sword, sharp and unyielding, ready to slice through their veils of ignorance, but just as resolve seemed to kindle within, the light surged again. The church trembled, and the very foundation beneath them began to crack. They had rattled the bones of the past, now, it seemed the past was ready to rattle back. "Trust or betray," the glowing woman whispered ominously, her voice blending with the chaos encircling them. "The moment has come. Choose your path before the darkness claims you all." With that chilling declaration, a blinding flash enveloped the church, leaving the townsfolk gasping, fear etched across their faces. Would they find their courage in chaos or be swallowed whole by the shadows waiting hungrily? As the light faded, a new threat emerged from the haze. The shadows were no longer just echoes, they were alive, and the reckoning had only just begun. What would they uncover in the depths of their fears? And in facing their demons, would they find liberation or be consumed by a truth far darker than they ever anticipated? The air in the church thickened, charged with energies both familiar and haunting. With every heartbeat, the walls seemed to pulse as if alive, the shadows slinking closer, eager to snatch their chance at vengeance. Father Thompson felt the unsettling weight of generations pushing against him, a tapestry of grief and darkness woven into the very fabric of their gathering. "Form a circle!" he shouted, his voice carried on a current of panic. The townsfolk stumbled, rushing to align themselves around the altar, fumbling with their fears. Desperation knitted their brows, and still, one look at each other was enough to confirm the personal battles raging within. As they linked hands, feeling each pulse of the other's fear bleed into their own steadfastness, the shadows twisted, morphing into grotesque visages of their past. Anguished cries echoed, deep echoes of their secrets surfacing, an infidelity, an unresolved betrayal, a hidden shame. "Don't look away." The voice of the glowing woman cut through the cacophony. Each word seeped through the crowd like liquid fire, igniting dormant terrors. "Face what you have tried to bury. Only then can you break the chains that bind you." A pulse of light erupted from the altar, illuminating the horrors that haunted each individual. A man stumbled back, face paling as visions of his youthful arrogance swirled before him, a decision made that had ruined a friendship and tainted a community. Another woman sank to her knees, her voice a choked whisper, I'm so sorry," as the shadow of her lost child flickered beside her, unseen by others yet painfully visible to her alone. "Look closer," the glowing figure urged, her dark eyes mesmerized. "What you hide is the very thing holding you hostage." As reality collided with the shadows, fractures appeared within the ground beneath them. The church seemingly groaned under the weight of the unleashed truth, the walls bending as if preparing to succumb to the rage of the long-suffering spirits released from their binds. Father Thompson felt his own heart racing, a surge of guilt clamoring for attention, the promise he had broken to a member of his flock, the soul lost that good prayers had failed to save. "Together! Now!" he shouted as the shadows surged, reaching hungrily toward the living. The townspeople squeezed their hands tighter, finding strength in shared vulnerability. They steadied themselves, staring into the depth of their collective fears, demanding the specters of truth to reveal essential lessons rather than mere torment. The shadows writhed, grinding into themselves until one emerged, more solid than the rest, a face they all recognized. It was a man they had all known, one who had vanished without explanation years ago. "You didn't seek me," the figure said, his voice tinged with sorrow. "You didn't confront what you buried. You let guilt rot your souls." Gasps echoed. Fear tangling with guilt readily swallowed the air around them. "Now you must choose," the woman at the altar interjected, urgency penetrating her tone. "Reject your fears, leave the past unexamined, or uncover the truths that could save your souls." Her eyes flickered between anger and pity, a vessel of old pain. With every tumultuous breath, another shadow emerged, each bearing the weight of another life lost, another truth unacknowledged. They whispered and cried, pleading for atonement, feeding on the energy of dread. They were not just specters, they were mirrors of their choices, reflections of the sins they had tried to forget. The ground shook one last time, and from deep below, a resounding voice echoed, "What sacrifices are you willing to make?" Silence leveled out the chaos, momentarily suspending time in that church as each person contemplated their inner demons. Power surged, a terrifying potential looming over them, as they realized they must unearth their truth or risk forever being lost in the dark. They stood at the edge, but would they find the courage to leap into discovery, or would they let the shadows claim their lives once more? The flicker of betrayal grew colder. As Father Thompson stared into the void, a new realization dawning. What have we become? He whispered, the truth slashing deeper than any blade. Outside, thunder growled, echoing the tempest brewing within. Just then, as their resolve wavered, they were enveloped in an overwhelming darkness, swallowing everything, but not before the woman's voice rang one last time, choose wisely before it's too late. Could they truly confront the ghosts of their past, or would the weight of their choices crush them into silence once and for all? As the enveloping darkness thickened, the very fabric of reality twisted and warped, swallowing the church whole. A frigid wind swept through the gathering, wrapping around each person like tendrils of ice. Whispers echoed against the walls, a haunting chorus of the forgotten. The shadows stretched out, twisting and curling with sinister glee, drawing nearer, feeding off the fear and suffocating the flicker of hope. Father Thompson could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on them, a monstrous force that threatened to crush their resolve. The air crackled, heavy with the desperation of ghosts longing for release. "Father, what do we do?" A voice trembled. It was Rachel, one of the most devoted parishioners. Tears streamed down her cheeks, glistening like pearls of regret, illuminated by the faint glow emanating from the altar. She looked to Thompson, eyes wide with desperation. "We stand together," he shouted, though uncertainty laced his voice. "In this moment, the truth must spill into the light." His words hung in the air, trembling between hope and dread. The townsfolk grasped each other's hands tighter, feeling the warmth, the pulse of living flesh among the ice of memories pressing in around them. But the shadows did not relent. They surged forward, agitated, ready to devour. Suddenly, the glowing woman stepped forward, her presence commanding amidst the chaos. "Enough!" she cried, her voice slicing through the darkness like a knife. "Look at what you are hiding. Embrace your shame, or you'll remain forever shackled." The shadows quivered, recoiling slightly as if the light from the woman's figure stung. Father Thompson felt a strange clarity rushing over him, a sudden urgency urging him to act. "Each of us must speak our truth," he commanded, adrenaline coursing through his veins. "Or else we shall drown in our silence." The congregation stood still, fear battling against the urge to confess. A murmur spread like flame through dry brush, igniting the collective dread. One by one, faces twisted in tormented contemplation. Finally, it was old Mr. Jensen, the town's reclusive historian, who broke the silence. I regret the lies I told about the past. I obscured the truth about the town's origins. The blood of those wronged courses through these grounds." His declaration reverberated in the stillness, and the shadows flinched, retreating slightly as if wincing from the weight of his truth. "I took and never gave back," Rachel added, trembling. "I didn't stand up for my sister when she needed me. I let her down." The shadows writhed in response, their forms twisting and contracting. "More. We need to speak more," Father Thompson urged, feeling a surge of hope. "Let it out." As one after another revealed their burdens, the air crackled with horrifying revelations. Confessions of deceit, of neglect, of love turned to bitterness spilled forth. Each release resonated through the church, an explosion of honesty that lashed against the encroaching void. But the shadows howled in rage, unyielding. "You think your words will free you?" they screeched, their twisted forms vibrating with malice. "What you reveal will only deepen the darkness." That chilling assertion struck horror into the hearts of many. A woman in the back cried out, "What are we supposed to do? We're terrified." "What if it's too late?" "Trust in the light," the glowing woman urged, her figure shimmering defiantly against the storm of despair. But even her confidence began to waver as shadows crawled closer, their whispers blending into a symphony of despair. Just then, the church trembled again, and from beneath the altar, thunderous cracks echoed, as if the earth itself were protesting their confessions. With each proclamation, the ground below them strained against the weight of unresolved sins. Your truths must unite like a bond, not splinter like a blade," she shouted urgently. In that frozen moment, Father Thompson saw all their eyes wide, pleading, filled with a mix of terror and determination. They were staring into the abyss of their more profound fears. And suddenly he knew. The shadows were not just memories but choices that could bind them or unshackle them. He realized they could not pluck the light from the dark. It was in the acceptance of that darkness that their true power lay. "Let us face our fears together," he bellowed. "Stand up. Show the shadows that we the living hold the power to change our fate." As they began to chant, voices rising in unison, the shadows shrieked, recoiling, but still, the darkness loomed. Could their collective voice summon enough strength to confront the lurking abyss? Would the truths unleashed be enough to vanquish the depths of despair threatening to engulf them? The storm raged outside as Father Thompson looked into the eyes of his community, each heartbeat familiar and vital. They were teetering on the brink, and only the next confession could tip the scales, for their darkest secrets could very well be their salvation or their doom. What truth would emerge next? The chanting echoed within the church, a desperate plea borne on waves of fear. Father Thompson felt the energy surge. Each voice carved through the shadows, exposing raw wounds layered deep within the hearts of his congregation. But the shadows were relentless, yearning to pull them back into their suffocating embrace. "Keep going," Thompson shouted over the rising terror. "Don't let this moment slip away." Suddenly, a deep, guttural laugh reverberated through the hall, smothering their words. The shadows coalesced, swirling menacingly as if alive. They surged forward, swallowing patches of light, drawn to the fear emanating from every corner of the room. Then, a scream sharp and piercing. All eyes turned toward the back, where Susan, the towness librarian, trembled, her hands dancing frantically over her mouth as if holding back an unearthly terror. I can't. I can't," she stammered, panic flickering in her eyes. "What if my truth is worse than the shadow? What if it destroys us all?" With each heartbeat, the tension twisted tighter. Father Thompson's heart raced. What hidden nightmare was Susan carrying? The weight of the unspoken seeped into the air, thickening like fog. The congregation was on the edge of a precipice, teetering between light and darkness. "Your truth is your own," he urged. "It will only bind the shadows tighter if you keep it inside. You must speak." Susan dropped to her knees, trembling like a leaf in a storm. I didn't do anything. I saw what happened to Kevin, but I stayed silent. I thought if I said nothing, if I ignored it, it wouldn't hurt anyone. I thought wrong." Her voice cracked, and with each syllable, shadows flared, retreating from the spill of her confession. The tension in the room thickened. A ripple of realization coursed through the townsfolk. Could fear alone foster clarity amidst the chaos? Could admitting their transgressions somehow weaken the creeping darkness? Father Thompson stepped forward, heart pounding. "It's not just about what we've done. It's also about who we can become. Caring for our neighbor, standing up for one another, these are the threads that bind us to something greater." Another figure rose, a young man, David, who remained in the background. His voice trembled but held strength. I blamed my father for everything that went wrong in my life. I cursed him for being weak, but I never tried to understand the man he was. I fed that darkness, and it consumed me, isolating me when I needed him most." The shadows writhed violently, losing form with every new confessional spark igniting in the assemblage. A crescendo of voices unfurled, each one shedding burdens that clung like chains. Each truth sent a shockwave through the twisted darkness, and for the first time, the shadows hesitated, flickering like dying embers. But then a booming voice cut through the chorus. A looming figure stepped from the shadows, a distorted mirror of Father Thompson. "You think your confessions can cleanse you? They will only serve to deepen the wounds." The crowd gasped as the shadows coiled around this figure, a grotesque parody of themselves, feeding off the fear radiating from those trembling bodies. "Do you dare to defy your very nature?" it taunted, laughter dripping with malice. "You believe in power through unity, but all you unleash is self-deception." The gathered townsfolk gasped collectively, a wave of despair washing over them. What hope was there against a reality that disclaimed their very essence? Thompson clenched his fists. Their passion was bubbling to the surface, but would it be enough? Was it too late for Susan, for David, for them all? "Look at what binds us!" he shouted, calling every soul to action. "Our fear has been our chains, but we are not defined by it. We define ourselves." Just then, through the oppressive shadows, a flash of blinding light erupted from the altar. It pulsed, living and breathing, almost in sync with the fervor of their words. "Trust in your truth," the glowing woman encouraged, her presence flickering yet fierce. "Let your light shine in the dark." The figure in shadows darkened, twisting and curling, slashing at the luminous form spilling over the altar's edge. The air grew taut with anticipation, the congregation waiting, breath held for the next moment. Could they conjure enough light to blind the abyss before them? Would the powerful truths courageously spoken unleash a tidal wave of change? As the figure began to falter, Thompson's heart raced with hope. But uncertainty lurked in the background, waiting for the moment to snuff it out. Darkness twisted with excitement. What would be the true cost of their revelations? And could they hold on to the light long enough to redeem their very souls? The tension in the church reached a breaking point. The air crackled as light fought against the consuming shadows. Father Thompson felt the heat of that radiant presence, but the church's dark reflection loomed dangerously. With every flicker of hope illuminating the congregation, it seemed that darkness lashed out with greater intensity. "Think of who you are," Thompson yelled as his voice shook. "You have the power to rise above this torment, to reclaim your souls." The shadows responded, swirling in a tempest of despair, their edges sharp. The figure that had stepped forth, a warped version of Father Thompson, towered menacingly. "Reclaim? You are too late." It cackled, its voice a dissonant echo of his own. "You've built your sanctuary on lies." A ripple of unease swept through the attendees. Some shifted nervously, glancing around, as if seeking an escape. Others stood transfixed, eyes wide as they absorbed the battle playing out between light and dark. The glowing woman continued to shine fiercely, illuminating the faces around her, but the shadows flickered in and out, distorting reality. "What lies?" croaked Susan, voice trembling as she regained her footing. I thought staying silent would protect us for a time, perhaps," the dark figure hissed, "but truth has a way of clawing back." "Isn't that what you fear, Susan? The truth that gnaws at your insides? That you knew and did nothing?" With those words, the shadows surged. It was as if they fed off the congregation's fear and regret. A suffocating pressure descended, squeezing the very breath from their lungs. Faces turned pale, the bright glow began to dim as their unity waned. Thompson felt the panic rising. "Don't let it consume you," he shouted, heart racing. "Remember why we're here. Remember your voice." David stepped forward again, fortified by the radiant woman's aura, claiming the courage growing inside him. "Being silent has chained us. It's time we unleash the truth, for Kevin, for all of us." His voice rang out, cutting through the tension like a knife through fog. As he spoke, others joined in murmurs at first, then voices rising like a choir, echoing back to the essence of their fears. Each confession became a heartbeat, fueling hope, pushing back the shadows inch by inch. "I failed my sister. I lost touch with who I was. I didn't believe." The shadows recoiled, swirling violently around the dark figure, now screaming in rage and panic. The room's atmosphere shifted, filled with newfound energy, each word an act of defiance, yet the figure lunged from the darkness, reaching for Susan with claw-like hands. "You cannot escape me!" it shrieked. But the radiant light pulsed stronger now, responding to their truths, igniting a fierce flame of solidarity. Thompson took a step back, heart racing. "Yes. Keep going. Let your truths bind the light. Let your courage echo beyond these walls." The force of their combined voices clashed against the embodiment of their fear. The dark figure stumbled back, disoriented, as beams of light surged forth. For a moment, Thompson believed they had conquered the darkness. But just as victory seemed within grasp, the shadows twisted and condensed, a menacing dance, creating whispers that pricked at their resolve. "You think you can thrive on honesty?" it sneered, a sinister grin stretching across its face. How long before you falter? Before the weight of your truths crushes you? The congregation fell quiet, confronted again with the echo of their own insecurities. A heart-stopping silence hung heavy in the air. Thompson felt the chill creep back in, uncertainty clawing at the edges of his hope. What if facing their truths only left them more vulnerable? Would this attempt at purification lead to ruination? In the stillness, the luminous woman seemed to flicker, the connection becoming tenuous. Power ebbed as doubt encased the room. All that pulsated now was fear. Could they hold on to their light long enough to turn back the encroaching night? Or would the darkness reveal an even deeper truth, one that threatened to unravel them all at a moment's notice? A heavy, suffocating silence enveloped the church, broken only by the frantic heartbeats echoing in the throats of the congregation. Each person sensed the palpable weight of their fears, tightening like a noose around their collective spirit. Father Thompson felt it too, a dread that twisted within him, threatening to extinguish the flame of hope they had kindled. "Don't let it control you," he shouted, voice strained. He could feel the knot in his stomach twist dangerously, but he stood taller, refusing to back down. "We're stronger together. Face it. Face it now." From the front pew, Susan trembled, caught between the bright warmth of the woman's light and the chilling reach of shadows, her voice barely above a whisper. "But what if the truth breaks us?" "Then let it break us," David declared, his eyes fierce. "Better to be shattered by honesty than held captive by lies." "Unleash your strength," Thompson urged, the fire igniting once more. "Truth is painful, yes, but it's also freeing." As if in response, the glowing woman surged forward, a beacon of hope. Her light intensified, illuminating every corner of the dark church. Yet, the dark figure didn't budge. It laughed, a cruel, haunting sound that echoed like the toll of a ghostly bell. "Free? You cling to each other so desperately, but what will you do when I reveal what's buried deep in your hearts?" It hissed, its voice wrapping around each soul, squeezing tighter. A ripple of fear washed over the attendees, and panic set in. What horrors lay hidden within them? What were they trying to escape? "Think about Kevin," David yelled suddenly, clenching his fists. "He deserves truth. We owe him that much." The name hung like a barbed wire in the air. Whispers shifted, mixing with the shadows that danced closer. The figure's dark form loomed larger, reaching for Susan again, its fingertips brushing against her. "You will fall." It howled, as if its victory was inevitable, but Susan found her voice. "No. I won't let fear rule my life anymore." Her words rang out, stronger than she felt. "This is my truth, my choice. I face you." The congregation surged with renewed vigor, each confession rippling out until voices merged into a thunderous wave. "I lost my brother. I turned away. I didn't stand up." Light exploded from the collective resolve, driving the shadows back for precious moments. Each glowing declaration became a dagger that pierced the darkness, but doubt lingered in the corners of the church. What truths were still lurking? With every light that flickered brighter, another shadow slinked deeper, feeding on their vulnerabilities, clawing at their souls. "This will end in tragedy," the figure screamed, laughter mingling with anguish. "Why would you willingly embrace your burdens?" "Because we're tired of running," Thompson shouted back, invoking an urgency that thundered within the walls. "We've hidden long enough. Sweep away the debris of our past." A group began to sway in rhythm, their voices intertwining like a spiral, reaching higher and higher. The luminous woman shone brilliantly beside them, her face resolute, fists clenched, every bit the embodiment of their newfound determination. But then, a sudden chill swept through the church, snuffing the light. The figure let out a guttural laugh. "You think you're strong? This weakness will be your downfall." Each member felt their pulse quicken, the walls closing in, shadows tightening. Confessions faltered, voices wavering. One by one, doubt crept back into their hearts. Were they really prepared to confront the ugly truths buried in their souls? "What if they're too heavy?" whispered one frightened parishioner, clinging to a pew. "Your truth may be your salvation," Thompson urged, desperation rising. "Or it may shatter you. It's your choice." Just then, as their voices began to fracture, the dark figure lunged forward, reaching toward each trembling heart, daring them to uncover the darkest secrets they were too afraid to face. Could they withstand the weight of their buried truths, or would they collapse under the pressure? As the figure darted closer, shadows converged, blurring the lines between light and dark. Fear gripped the congregation tightly. In that moment, they were teetering on the abyss. What would the darkness reveal in its relentless search for truth? Would it tear them apart or finally set them free? The darkness lunged, chilling fingers reaching out with a ferocity that made skin crawl. The congregation gasped, collective breaths hitching in fear. Sweat trickled down Father Thompson's spine as he watched the figure wade through the gathering of souls, leaving a trail of dread. "You think you can conquer me?" the shadow emitted, a low snarl rumbling through the church. The mocking laughter echoed, stirring unease in the hearts of those present. "Dive into your past," it taunted, weaving around them like smoke. "What skeletons dance in your closets? What sins will you unearth? Each of you has secrets, mistakes, burdens too heavy to carry." Susan clenched her fists, battling the urge to scream. The whispers of doubt grew louder, threatening to drown her resolve. Images of guilt swirled in her mind, memories she thought she had buried. She felt her heart racing as her thoughts spiraled. Did she have the strength to shed them? "Take your light back," she shouted, breaking the spell of silence. She reached out for the glowing form of the woman. "Join us. We'll shine brighter together." In that moment, the luminous figure surged forward, radiating warmth that pushed against the encroaching darkness. The congregation felt hope ignite as warmth spread through the church. "Reveal your truths," the glowing woman commanded. "Let yourself be seen." One by one, members of the congregation stepped forward. "I was unfaithful," a man yelled, voice trembling yet fierce. "I hid from my family. I abandoned my dreams," cried another before the shadows could grab hold again. Their confessions roared louder, each declaration accompanied by a burst of light, pushing back the lingering shadows. Together they created a symphony of truths, drowning out the cruel laughter of the dark figure. "Do you see?" the figure hissed, its form wavering as the room filled with blinding light. "They are weak. They cling to lies and regrets. It won last. Enough." Thompson's voice cut through the chaos, filled with unwavering authority. "Your reign of fear ends here. We will not be silent anymore." The shadows hissed, recoiling, but the dark figure gathered strength. "What if you lose each other in your quest for truth?" it whispered, a silky voice that sent shivers through the crowd. "What if your truths destroy the fabric of your very souls?" But the congregation, fueled by desperation and anger, roared back. "We've already been destroyed." They cried in unison, their voices merging into an explosion of life and defiance, and yet, even as momentum built, unseen cracks began to form. David reached out, grabbing Susan's arm. "What if this doesn't work? What if the truth is too much?" A violent tremor rippled through the church, shaking the foundations. With every ounce of strength, Susan gritted her teeth and met David's gaze. "We can't be afraid of what we uncover. The truth is our only salvation." In that moment, the dark figure lunged, cloaked in rage. It aimed for Susan, reaching out as shadows erupted around them, clawing at the air, seeking to pull her back into despair. "Trust in the light," the glowing woman urged, her radiant form intensifying as she faced the darkness head-on. With each pulse of fear that gripped them, Susan felt the weight of vulnerability crash down. Were they strong enough to face what was about to surface? Would their truths unite them or tear their fragile unity apart? As the darkness smeared against their glowing hope, Susan's heart thundered in her chest. The moment was now. They stood at the edge of revelation. What would they find if they dared to stare into the abyss? Would it set them free or plunge them deeper into chaos? The chaos reached a boiling point in that old church, where shadows stretched, swirling with a hunger that seemed insatiable. The congregation felt their hearts racing, each beat sinking with the pulse of desperation filling the air. Father Thompson stood tall, refusing to let the darkness claim them, though doubt clawed at his insides. Just as he thought they might be lost, their collective voices soared, igniting the air with a crackling energy, illuminating their shared confessions. Susan took a step forward, her voice steady and defiant. "I refuse to lose hope." Each member of the congregation let their truths spill forward like an unbroken dam. "I betrayed my friend. I lost my child to my own selfishness." Each confession echoed around them, building strength and light that pressed against the suffocating dark. "Don't you see?" the dark figure sneered, momentarily stumbling. "You're only revealing more pain, more weakness." But the townsfolk stood resolutely. Their shared vulnerability created a bond that neither the shadows nor their own fears could sever. "I can't stand to be silent anymore," David yelled, stepping alongside Susan. His voice rang clear, and each member felt the tremor of courage from him, emboldening them to do the same. "I led my life judging everyone else instead of offering my hand." The shadows writhed around him, but the light from their confessions grew brighter, pushing back against the threatening void creeping forward. For a second, it felt like a balance was struck. Hope visibly swirled through the air, shimmering like dust caught in sunlight. Their truths were reclaiming them, lifting burdens that had choked the very essence of their souls. "We will not live in shame," Father Thompson shouted, each word woven with the fierceness of their unity. But the dark figure recoiled, its twisted grin fading into a snarl of fury. "You think your whispers can drown out the truth?" it taunted, winding through the room. "What of the darkest corners? What of the deaths that came from your silence? The regrets that fester in the shadows?" The congregation fell silent again, uncertainty creeping into their hearts. Memories flickered vividly, betrayal, loss, regrets clawed at their consciousness. But in that moment of hesitation, Susan summoned all the courage she could muster. "The truth may hurt, but it's time to face what we've buried." Each word cut through the lingering despair like a knife, steady and unwavering. With newfound strength, the congregation's resolve began to grow stronger once more. "These shadows may haunt us, but they do not define us." Thompson rallied. "We were not just bystanders, we were participants in our own healing. For every sin we face, there is a chance for redemption. Let our collective honesty shatter the unyielding chains of fear." A roar of affirmation erupted from the townsfolk, echoing through the walls of the church as they began to chant, their voices harmonizing in a powerful sea of truth. The dark figure staggered, shadows retreating, every confession fueled their momentum. They were on the brink of something monumental together. They could unleash full-force illumination, but then a blast of cold air spiraled around them, harrowing gasps echoing as the shadows surged forth again, desperate and ravenous, trying to snuff out their light. "You are fools!" the dark figure screeched, merging deeper, teasing at the edges of their conviction. "You cannot overcome me. This darkness is your birthright. You will drown." Yet, as the congregation felt the chilling grip of despair, a single voice pierced the clamor. Rachel, tears streaming down her face but eyes fierce with purpose. "We may stumble," she cried, "but we will not sit idle. We choose to carry our truths, to let them lift us rather than bind us." One by one, they cried out, their words creating a swell of light that broke away the suffocating darkness. They fought through the pain and fear, finding strength not only in their truths but in one another's resolve. "Let them ring," Father Thompson declared, shaking the air with urgency. "Let each truth cleanse us." The luminous woman shone brighter, her light merging with theirs, causing the shadows to recoil, stifled by the truths that began to pour forth like a torrent. Past hurts, hidden joys, each story vibrated in the air, each declaration indeed fought back the dark. The shadows quivered, dissolving into a nebulous mist. Suddenly, the dark figure raised its hands, trying to snuff out their flame, but it was too late. They stood united at the threshold, woven together through raw honesty and shared emotion, the divine light bursting forth from the collective truth they held. It radiated strength and hope. The shadows began retreating. Fear twisted into disbelief as the figure faltered, screaming in outrage. "This can't be." But with every word spoken, the vibrancy of their truth resonated, pushing the oppressive darkness away, turning the church into an arena of soaring energy. In one final resonating echo, the townsfolk chanted, "Our truths are our power. Our light is our freedom." The dark figure burst into nothingness, disintegrating into the very shadows they feared for so long. A great wave enveloped the church, lifting the townsfolk in a breath of fresh air. They gasped, the weight of burdens lifted, the night broken, the flickering light steadied as dawn's first light broke through the stained glass, illuminating the church with a new warmth. Father Thompson surveyed his congregation, each person glistening with a new resolve, fresh purpose glimmering in their eyes. Their whispers of regret had transformed into powerful affirmations of strength. The church that once felt haunted by echoes of fear now radiated with a vibrant spirit, washed clean by the brutal honesty they faced. They had woven a shield of truth beyond the reach of darkness. "Today, we begin anew," Thompson declared, pride swelling in his chest. "We are bonded by our stories. We rise together, united in our truth." With smiles breaking through tears, the townsfolk stepped outside into the early morning light, fueled by the knowledge that they held the power to illuminate the path ahead. They were wound together now, strengthened by their truths, ready to face the world as one. As they walked into this new dawn, a sense of hope soared, their hearts resonating with the echoes of the past, transformed into a glorious harmony of resilience. They would not forget or ignore, rather, they would remember, reshaping their town with letters of hope, more radiant than any shadow. Don't wait even one more second. You need to subscribe now to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to support the algorithm and help us reach even more amazing people. And flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this thrilling conclusion. Finally, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this empowering ending. This is the moment to show your support, so jump in.